Welcome to Norse Talk, information of the gods. I am Red Bearded Viking. This is Red Dranger, and Happy New Year, you guys. Welcome to 2022. It's been an amazing start to Norse Talk at the end of last year. We are so excited to bring into the new year with Norse Talk this year, you guys. We have some amazing things happening with Norse Talk this year. We're coming close to the end of the current book that we're on, the Practical Heathen's Guide to the Astra by Patricia Lafayllve. We are going to be finishing this book up towards mid January. And one of the most exciting things about it is come January 19th. We don't have a specific time yet. That'll be coming soon, you guys, that announcement. But we are going to be having a Zoom call with Patricia Lafayette and be able to discuss the book with her, which will be uploading to YouTube once she approves it, you guys. So it's just an amazing event that's going to be happening. So there's a lot of things coming in the new year with Norse Talk. There's a lot of amazing things happening in this new year with the Norse community, and we're just excited to be a part of it. How was your New Year's, Red?
It was really good. It was calm. I stayed home. Again, like Redbeard say, recapping the new year. 2021 was the introduction to many of us to the TikTok Norse pagan community and what has began to happen in the world here. And we are so excited and so honored to have all of you here as we go into 2022. We are so excited to see where the path is going to take us next and what adventures and fun times and shenanigans we all have ahead with each other. So thank you so much for being here. I hope all of you guys had a great and safe new year. And I hope that everybody's ready to get back to studying because that's what we're here for.
Definitely, man. It is a New Year's, you guys, and with it being a new year, it's awesome that we're opening up the new year with this chapter of the book. At the top of the page, it says, "An age which took its God seriously would not be likely to treat an oath lightly." And with just coming off the New Year's, you guys, and people making New Year's resolutions and everything, it's kind of awesome to start this chapter of the book with the ethics, hospitality, and oaths. It is chapter 12 that we are on tonight, you guys. And this chapter has so much good information. Like, this chapter had me really excited reading it because it really did make me kind of reevaluate myself. Um, and think about things that I need to start holding myself up to standard and accountability for, to help myself become a better person. And, with it being a new year, why not fresh start and start fresh and start leaning towards those things to try and accomplish those type of things in myself, just so that I can bring myself up and better myself and who I am in life.
This book has done such a great job at introducing us to new theories and ideas and information, and then kind of tying it all together with theory every couple of chapters. And chapter 12 really hit the nail on the head. I mean, we did talk about um, chapter 11 being a little bit of a letdown for us on the last one, but reading into chapter 12 and then kind of going back in with some of the stuff we took from chapter 11, it does make a little bit more sense to me now. I'm super excited to get into this part of the book, and I'll kick it back to Redbeard.
Yeah, definitely. It was like the last chapter was a little dry, textbookish, but it did a really good job of setting you up to lead you into this, to give you the information to be able to comprehend what's going on in this chapter a little bit better. Um, we're just going to start out with right here. It says, "Heathens live in the here and now, and typically are not at all focused on the afterlife. There are multiple afterlives in heathen thinking: Valhalla for the chosen slain, Rand's Hall for those drowned at sea, Helheim for the majority of the heathens and their ancestors and others. But there is no focus on where heathens will go, nor do heathens' behavior stem from their desire to have a better afterlife." Um, it just, like, that really spoke strongly to me, just because it's the whole, with everything we've talked about so far with the here and now and the past being permanent, and how as you go on in life you have such a big variety of choices, and as you make decisions, um, and those become permanent, then your variety of choices gets smaller and narrower into determining where you finally end up. And that's why living in the here and now is so important, because when you're constantly focused on the future or the afterlife or whatever it is you're focusing on, then you're not putting your wholeheartedness into the decisions that you're making today, because you're making decisions based on what you may proclaim that your future, or may think your future is going to be, instead of making the choices to keep your options open and to steer your future in the direction that's best fit for the situation.
It's a really interesting concept when you look at it. The book describes monotheism as looking at this life as being, you're striving for something else. The goal is to ascend to that afterlife, to that heaven, or whatever it's called in whatever faith you have, and that your actions in life are going to determine where you get there or not. When it comes to heathenry, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. You could live a life with the goal of wanting to be a great warrior to ascend to Valhalla, but if you drown, you're not going. If you die a death outside of battle, you're not going. So the focus was more on the here and living in the real world and the choices that you made day to day. Um, a heathen didn't live his life and die just to attain Valhalla. They lived their life in a way that made that themselves worthy of it. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of looking at how you affect the real world, and it's a vital component to have in your head when we start moving on to some more of the heavier theories and topics.
Right. And, I love how when she's talking about living in the here and now, and basically your decisions being ultimately whatever you want them to be, she does go into to talk about the fact that this does not mean that we can do anything that we want, because
Mm-hmm.
there are consequences for every decision that you make, and you got to make sure that you're weighing those. And one of the biggest aspects about how heathens present themselves and where their stature is and everything, um, are based on the choices that we make, because it represents who we are and gains our reputation for ourselves. Um, and the longer, we talked about how the longer we live, the fewer choices that we have because of the decisions that we made. And that's where we got to look at the positive actions now will lead to the more positive series of outcomes for the future. Therefore, action is important, and that's when we start getting into the ethics of it, where she starts talking about the ethics. And it talks about how heathens believe that there is no real future, only a series of most likely outcomes. They believe that everything is interconnected through the well of word. And by everything, heathens mean not just the average everyday motions of their lives, but every act, sacred or profane, physical or spiritual. Heathen ethical system, therefore, are based on the actions taken in the here and now, because only through those actions can they make an impact on the world around them.
Yeah. And again, that's a really interesting part of philosophy, because when you first say that, if you're thinking from a traditional mono way of looking at it, and the statement says that heathens look at the future as how events are most likely to happen. When you say that to a person thinking very modernly, they're going to look at that as being assuming anything in the universe, where that part's not necessarily true with what the author is trying to describe here. When she talks about the well of Ward, if you guys remember us discussing that in an earlier chapter, the author goes into great detail to make sure that we understand that when we do complete an action in the present, when it is sewn into our tapestry that makes out our word, that does change and affect the options and abilities we have going forward. If you take an action that gets you arrested and now you can't travel outside of the country because you've been charged or something like that, or something that it limits your opportunities. And as time goes by and as you get older, you have enough life experiences that begins to build and narrow to the point where you can predict your trajectory at that point because of what has come before you. And that is a drastically different way of thinking compared to some monotheistic beliefs.
Right, and because of all that, when it goes into ethics, it a lot of people, um, we view our ethics as situational. So the ethical decision is based on the situation, the location, the people that are present, and everything involved. And because of how we evaluate our decisions, instead of basing our decisions on, I have to do it this way to appease my God. Um, when it comes to heathens, we do it situationally. We don't do it based on doing what we have to do so that we can get to a certain end in our lives because we live in the here and now, which argumentatively will bring some to claim that heathen um, ethics is not an ethical system at all.
Yeah, and it can't be further from the truth. Like you just said it greatly that so for a monotheist, they'll look at a situation and they'll look at what they can and cannot do based on where they want to attain. If you want to attain that heaven level, there are certain things that you cannot do. There are certain things that you have to do. Or when it came to the heathenry, it became a little bit more complex. It wasn't done just to get to a certain hall or afterlife. And it gets even further complex because there were certain actions and practices that people would do in respect to specific deities, in respect to specific practices and beliefs. It wasn't necessarily to ascertain or to get to that great hall, but it may have been in honor of a specific deity for a specific time of the year or event, depending on what the situation was. So an ethical code would have to exist. It's just not going to be the same ethical code that we're used to. And that's where people get really stuck is people see ethics as their own. They see their own ethics and their own value system and it ends there. And you see a lot of conflict even modernly with people with different beliefs because those ethical systems and what is right and wrong for one might not be right or wrong for the other. I do believe, and most people do, that there are some universals to that. There are some universal right and wrongs. But when it comes to societal customs and practices, those can be very, very different.
Right, and that's where you got to keep in mind, when it comes to the modernization of being Norse pagan and being a heathen. A lot of stuff that we are reading is based on the perspective of the warrior cultures, where so the ethic system started with the warrior cultures, where we don't have those type of conflicts today. We have different type of conflicts, but we don't have the threat of life type conflicts um, as much as they did back then in order to be able to sustain the food, the farming, the trading, and everything like that. And she quotes the Havamal in here when it's coming to the warrior cultures. When it says, "For his weapon on the open road, no man should step one pace away." And in a which means in a warrior's culture, one should keep one's weapon close at hand. And back then the weapons would have been, you know, their swords and axes and everything like that. Where nowadays a lot of our weapons are, virtual, have to do with um, knowledge, have to do with being able to research stuff. We have so many different weapons at our disposal for our modern society to be able to protect ourselves and gain knowledge and everything and gain what we need in life. Where back in the warrior culture, um, to fight was basically their way to keep what they had,
Exactly.
and go into battle and everything like that. So it's you guys got to make sure that you're keeping the mindset of being a modern heathen compared to being of the warrior culture, because we're not at that stage in this religion anymore, and we have, just with time, everything's grown, and that's goes back to the situational ethics. The situations have changed, so the ethics are different, because you know the decisions can have a ripple effect that you make throughout your country, throughout the world.
Yeah.
So, like, you got to look at, like, especially with being on social media like this, um, you got to really look at what you're putting out there and making sure that you're holding to your virtues and staying true, and you know giving people that true aspect of who you are and the message that you're trying to bring. And that's where we start getting into more of the ethics of it, and how it builds your character and your reputation. um, like when she starts talking about, the the foolishness and everything. A person's reputation builds good character because the person tells the truth, because the person is honest, because the first person is forthcoming. Where when you're lying to people about things and then you get caught in that lie, you know, it ruins your credibility with people. Because once you start spewing out lies and trying to cover them up with more lies and whatnot, the more and more your reputation breaks down, and the less and less people want to be involved and be around
Yeah, it's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it all blends together. Going into warrior culture and modern and ancient heathenry, though there are still modern sects of warrior culture, you can say that branches of the military distribute warrior culture, that there are specific peoples that still do. However, it is different because it is not. So, bringing up the military makes it interesting because when you look back at ancient heathenism, everybody had to be willing to fight. Everybody had to have that mentality. Everybody had to have that ability because it was your direct survival and you didn't know what you were going to be fighting against. It could be the elements, it could be another tribe, it could be a raiding party, it could be anything. Whereas modernly, we don't see that as much. We do live in a very fairly comfortable world now where, again, the fighting is done, a lot of it in the day-to-day life aspect of it virtually. We have police, we have services that have been set up that did not exist back then. People were spread apart. They didn't, and small communities had to really lean on each other to survive. And that's when the warrior aspect of it crosses into the ethics. Like Redbeard said, if you were a man that didn't keep your word, back then you weren't somebody that could be depended on in helping the group survive. It wasn't about an inconvenience or about them just not being trustworthy or annoying or whatever. If you couldn't keep your word, if you couldn't do what you said you were going to do, the group of people, your community, couldn't depend on you when it counts. And it still resonates today, when it comes to work life and everyday life. If you have a coworker and every time they say something to you or you ask them to do something, they tell you that they're going to get it done and don't, you're not going to trust that person in the success of what you're doing. And it's we get small pockets of it now, but back then it was everything. It was absolutely everything. And that's why the warrior culture is so widespread among different groups of people in the world, and why they all do often look very similar. Like the beliefs and practices, that can be completely different. But the core beliefs, honor, respect, ethics, oath keeping, was all there because it was the only way that you were going to make it through. Otherwise, it was you were testing the fates.
Yeah, 100%. And then I love how she starts. I do like how she quotes Aristotle a little bit in this
Mm-hmm.
book, where it says every virtue had its opposite vice. Courage, for example, was considered virtuous, while its opposite, cowardice, was a vice. However, every virtue taken too far can become a vice in of itself. Cowardice was a vice, but was so foolhardiness. A man who ran heading into danger with no consideration of his own life or those of his allies was foolhardy, and that was a vice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough, and that's where it's talking about examining the here and the now again. Is if you just when the situation comes up, charge into it and risk not only yourself but everybody else present. You know, before you even evaluated the situation. That's not courage.
Yeah, it's
That's
foolhardiness.
exactly. So there's a big difference between, you know, if you stop to think on it and you don't take action right away, that doesn't make you a coward, because a coward is somebody that just shies away from everything and just turns their back on everything and tries to get away from it. Where somebody who actually takes the time to think about the decision, think it out properly, and then carry out their decision is considered more courageous.
This is such a huge lesson, and it's I'm probably going to get in a little bit of trouble for saying this. This is something I wish that the heathen community on TikTok would pay a little bit more attention to. We are all so used to, and we see it all the time. A comment will pop up, somebody will say something insulting, and everybody loses their minds. Everybody charges in. Not every battle is worth fighting, especially in a way where you can't fight it. Somebody commenting something you don't like in your live or on your video, you are not going to win a battle with them by going to virtual war. It Nothing gets solved. These type of people exist. They do it because they want to. It's entertainment for them. So you move past it and you don't let that affect your path. And in that, you're choosing not to fight every battle. You're saving yourself for a battle worth fighting. And they are out there. And even modernly, the description that the book gives exists. When we were talking about it in the pre-show today, um, I told Redbeard, I still see this in my field of work. I still see young people come on, and all they want to do is rush in and fight. Literally, that's what they want. They want the action, the action, the action. And in doing so, they miss out on the knowledge and learning that they could have had. Their communication skills go down. Their de-escalation skills go down. And they become untrustworthy. Um,
Yeah, 100%.
a fool heart is a, as big a risk at getting you hurt, if not more, than a coward. A coward you can't count on. A fool heart is going to lead you into a fight that he doesn't care if you can win or not. And he doesn't care what's going to happen to you because he's not looking at the consequences. And it's important that we all look at the people we have around us and make sure that we're not keeping those people in our in yards where they can have that effect on our path, because it happens a lot.
Right. And in the Havamal, stanza 64 proclaims every man wise in counsel should use his power in moderation. Um, because the reason that he's wise in counsel is because of that moderation and not taking abrupt action
Yeah.
and not acting foolhardily. Instead, he's wise because he has lived in the here and now. He has contemplated the decision, made the decision that was best for the situation, instead of just going off a whim and just first instinct driving right into whatever the first thing that popped in your mind was before you even had a chance to consider the outcome of it, the reflections that it has, um, the impact that it can have on not only your life, but on the life of others as well. And it says that there is a sense of a give and take among the heathen community. Perhaps one day you give your neighbor gas to mow his lawn, and a few weeks or so later, he gives you sugar when you're out in the middle of baking cookies. The value of items exchanged does not really matter as long as reciprocal balance is maintained. What what matters more is that the exchange has been given and received. And that's just going more into the virtue of it, and the decision making and everything. We're one of the big things that we strive to be about as heathens is not only worrying about ourselves, but also being people that are of means to the community and help the community out that they live in. Not only their online community of other heathens, but the community that you live in where you are. Talking about neighbors and everything, and willing to give a helping hand out to people, you know, and realizing that there's always going to be checks and balances, but also it goes into talking about the fact that when it comes to giving and reciprocating, they don't need to equal out in value. If you have a lot and can share with somebody that has little, knowing that they can't repay you in that debt, but they repay you with what they have, that's the virtuous thing to do. And
It's
that's what
about the
keeps,
reciprocity, not the
exactly.
value of what you're giving or getting.
And I've seen a lot of that go on in this community where, when we do have somebody that's landed on hardship and needs help, and the community reaches out and does auctions and everything else, and, people that, you know, have a lot put up a lot more, but people that just want to put up to try and help out because they can't buy anything or anything like that and give up videos or something that they have to try and help it out, know that, if they're ever in that position, the same is going to be done for them. And those are the same people that, you know, you see time and time again, the people that were helped out are always the ones showing up doing whatever they can when somebody else is in
Yeah, we've seen that in real time. We've seen that in the auctions that we've facilitated, where we've supported one community member, and the second they were back on their feet, um, they turn around and help somebody else. And it is about that reciprocity. And again, that goes back to fundamental ways to survive. If you didn't work as a group, you didn't make it. And that culture still stands true today.
need. And I also love how it goes in with the reciprocity of it. Um, Talking about heathens consider their relationships with the gods to be reciprocal as well. Um, when That's why offerings are so important to heathens. There's little to no sense that a god may be angry and must be appeased. Instead, a person becomes something of a friend of the gods, giving back in exchange for all the gifts the gods have given.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we're not doing, um, we're not giving to the gods because we're afraid if we don't, they're going to be upset with us and they're going to punish us for not doing these things. We do these things to thank them for everything that they've done in our life, for being present, for steering us in the right direction, for helping us in our times of need.
Yeah.
And we have that. I love how she says friendship with our deities.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same with the ancestors. And again, like you hit the nail on the head. It's completely different than again the philosophy that most of us are used to um, in the monotheistic modern world. Is that, like you said, we're not doing these things to ascertain to heaven. That's not the point. The point is to thank for the now. And again, the way it works in the living world, this theory, for me personally, and again, this is going to be one of my personal opinions here, the way I knew that this was the right path is that when I sat down and looked at the living world and looked at the way I thought things should work and the way that they really work, when you use this theory, these theories, I should say, they fit. There's no wall, there's no rule that says, no, this, though this exists in reality, it can't be part of your world or you'll be punished, because it doesn't work. It's at that point it becomes a control of the living world, and we are not beings capable of that. The living world does not care what we want to do to it. We have to work within it. We have to work with it. Otherwise, it's just going to roll you over.
Right. And, sticking with what we're talking about with the gods and everything, you guys, one of the things that most appeals to me about this is the fact that, we don't have to worry that if Odin's not my specific god, I'm going to be punished for it.
Exactly.
That I have to do these things for him to make him happy so that I can come to Valhalla, or anywhere else with any of our gods. We get to pick and choose the gods that are our personal deities. And we get to have that personal relationship with the ones that we want. And we're not punished because we chose that one over this one.
Exactly.
We develop a relationship with our individuals gods, and it can be one or many. It can be as little as you choose or as much as you choose. You're not said that this is the only one. This is the only way. And if you don't, you'll never go here.
Exactly. I think about it like a football stadium. When you think of monotheism, the god, the deity, created the football stadium that they play on. So you have to play by that god's rules. It's his stadium. You know what I mean? Where with heathenry, the plane existed before the god. Like I said, the gods are non-eternal. They creationism for heathenry is completely different than monotheism. The gods exist on that football field. That football field is part of the living world. It was always there. It had to be in one form or another. And it changes the relationship. So instead of playing by that deity's rules in order to play on the field, it was more flexible because the deities were themselves present on the field and they were themselves imperfect. Where when you would follow a rule from a monotheistic god, it was done so to gain entry into the next realm, the next heaven, whatever you want to call it. Whereas when with heathens, if I don't work with Odin, I'm not going to concern myself too much with Odin giving a crap about me. Um, I'm not going to have to follow those specific sets of rules. What I am going to have to do is that if I do choose to approach that deity, if I do choose to ask something of that deity, whether it be advice, guidance, with an offering, at that point, I am almost binding myself to follow through with that. If that deity responds to you and does offer that advice, and then you choose not to take it, it's a completely different situation than if those rules had already existed before you played the game. And I don't know if that makes sense to a lot. I hope it does, but it is a different way of looking at it.
No, I totally agree. And then it also talks about reciprocity is not about tit for tat any more than it is meant to be taken advantage of. It is simply an unconscious system found within heathenry, which echoes through the majority of the heathen's ethical behaviors. And it speaks on how hard feelings can arise when a person gives too much and is taken advantage of. And feelings can also arise when the person gives too much and his actions cannot be balanced by the reciprocate of others. It's talking about, if you're out there giving all this and expecting to get it in return without discussing with the people what they can give in return, you can end up with hard feelings. Make sure when you're making these type of exchanges that
Mm-hmm.
you've talked about the person's situation and talked about, I understand that you don't have a lot, so whatever you do end up, when you do have something that can, I'll graciously accept it and not go, well, this isn't anything near what I gave
Yeah,
you.
because it can hurt. It can hurt both people on both sides. The giver may feel hurt because they can never get what they gave back. The receiver can also feel that guilt in knowing that they don't have the ability to reciprocate at the same level. So it exists on both planes. Again, it is balance.
Right, but that being said, too, remember that doesn't mean that you can just go around and knowing that these people are givers and just keep taking these gifts,
Yeah,
knowing that, and then just going, here's a penny, here's a penny, here's a penny, you know and
yeah,
using the gifts to flourish yourself by not giving back what in your power is equivalent.
exactly.
That's where the equivalency comes in, is when you're giving up something that in your equivalence to your situation and what you are able to, and you're freely giving that extra to pay it
Yeah,
forward, pay it back, whatever you want to call it. You know, where it's coming from isn't, oh, well, because I have so little, I'm going to give the littlest amount I can. It's going, I know I don't have a lot, but, I can go with a little less for today just so you can have a little bit more.
well, and the same was brought up when it came to making offerings to deities. If you were a well-off person making an offering to your specific deity and we're still offering the same basic offering that somebody that doesn't have as much as you is offering, it was going to be seen differently by the community because you did have the means. It was about what you could put in because sometimes you're going to be on top and sometimes you're not. And that is what this all boils down to is the community and the society surviving together because you cannot, back then, you were not going to be able to do it on your own full term. Reciprocity had to exist. You had to be able to count on your neighbor because though today you might have had a great crop year or a great trading year, next year winter could hit you hard. And you had to be able to count and give to the people that it was hit hard on so that if it did happen to you, you knew you were going to make it through. That is warrior culture. I mean, everybody looks at warrior culture and thinks just the battle, just the battle. And it's not. The philosophy about that is so much more intricate and is so much about making sure that your people are healthy enough so that they can fight if they have to. And if you're not taking care of each other and not treating each other with the same respect, dignity, and admiration that you want for yourself, you're not going to have anybody else with you in the shield wall because they're starving to death, because they got sick. You know what I mean? Like it is ingrained in every single aspect of heathenry life because you needed that shield wall. You needed to be able to be together. Otherwise, you weren't going to make it.
Yeah. And then as we, at this point, we start going into the hospitality aspects in this chapter. And the thing to keep in mind as we continue to go through this chapter, you guys, is everything that we've talked about from the beginning is we're building up that ethic barrier and building up to the reputation that we hold ourselves to and building up the type of people that we are and the type of community that we are and we want to be. So each one of these things that we're talking about individually all stem from who you are as a heathen and who we represent as heathens and how we project ourselves out there
Yep.
in this religion. And it starts at the top with hospitality saying, "Blessed be the givers. A guest has come in. Where is he going to sit?" You know, and this is still talking about the reciprocation, still talking about helping people out and everything. but it goes in to say the Havamal contains several stanzas regarding hospitality. Fire is needful for someone who's come in and who's chilled to the knee. Food and clothing are necessary for the man who's journeyed over the mountain. And that's just one of the stanzas from the Havamal on it that she did list in here that go into this. And it's talking about, it's not just about being a good host, but it's also about being good guests as well when you're hosted by somebody. You know, when somebody takes you in or offers to help you out, they once they do that, they've gained the responsibility of taking care of you for that period of time. Um, whether it be a couple hours, a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever it is. You know, I welcomed you in. So now when you were in need, and now it's my obligation because I did that to offer the things to help you out, whether it be food, some clothing, a warm place to sleep, whatever it is. Once I take on that responsibility, I'm obligated to take care of that person, to help that person out.
It when you get into the hospitality, and again, it boils again back down to warrior culture. Um, Quickly before I get into that, the saying the author just wrote down when she said that there are so many stanzas that speak about hospitality. And if you're first wading into the Havamal and it's your first book that you picked up, and I've seen it and I've answered so many questions about it, people will always ask, why does it go so much on to hospitality? Why does it talk so much about this? And until you look at those stanzas from this different point of view, it's really difficult to take away their meaning. Again, like Redbeard just said, if you offered shelter or your hospitality to somebody, you were offering them your full whole being of what you could provide. They expect to be kept safe in your home. They expect you to have the ability to do that. That is part of offering that hospitality, because it's what you would expect if it was offered to you. If that person then came back to your home because they had a bad stretch of luck and they couldn't protect themselves for a period of time, it was expected that once you offered that hospitality, that you would offer that protection to them as well. It was vital. And again, it all boils down to survival. It's why the warrior cultures were so dominating in a period of time that was so difficult to thrive and survive in, because they knew that code of conduct existed to build that success. When you look at different codes of conduct modernly, especially with a lot of monotheism, it's not a lot of that exists anymore. It's really about serving the state, the church, or yourself to attain that heaven, that elevated positioning, where when you look at this way of doing it, it was about thriving and surviving. It was about growing. These are people that would get on wooden boats with compasses in water and sail off with each other because they had that much trust in each other. Honestly, look at yourself and look at the people you know, and let me give you those old instruments and say, okay, go do that. A lot of us wouldn't trust the people around us because we don't live in that lifestyle anymore where you have seen that they are going to have your back and that you are going to have their back. We've become a very self-focused society. And that is why so many people again, this is strictly my opinion, why when so many people do find the Norse community now and do become immersed and a part of it, there's always that I've never felt this welcome before. I've never felt like I belong before, because everybody gets this mindset and they make it a part of that living world where they go, yeah, you know what? This week I'm doing all right. I had a good paycheck. Things are looking up for me. My friend here or here is not. And I know what it's like to be in that position. So I'm going to do what I can, not a specific set target, that's mandated by the society or the code of ethics, but what you can to help. Because in return, if next week you're injured while at work, you know that community is going to have your back, which means you're going to get through it. It's a safety net. It's necessary, and it spits in the face of a lot of modern beliefs nowadays. And it is finding its balance in modern society because it cannot exist in the entirely same way. But rules about hospitality sure can. If I went and visited Redbeard, I know that I wouldn't need anything. If Redbeard came here, he would know he wouldn't need anything. You would have that trust because you built that bond. And that's what it's all about. And it's really exciting to see flourishing and growing in the community the way it is right now.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like, speaking on still the hospitality aspect of it, excuse me. Um, it's like when you have a bunch of buddies over to watch a game, or you guys are out hunting or camping or doing whatever, and a buddy will be like, "Hey, can I grab a drink?" And you're like, "Yeah, help yourself," you know, or help yourself to the fridge. That means you can go in my fridge, you can grab a drink, you can grab a small bite to eat, whatever. But it's also having responsibility of it as a guest. Um, that if you come into my home or we're out and I say, yeah, go ahead, grab a drink, or go ahead, fridge is open, whatever you need, not to unload my fridge and run off with it. Or if we're out camping and stuff, everybody has that one friend that, you know, never brings anything and always takes way more than anybody else. Where,
And that leads to their reputation. It brings you full circle to what you hit on before. That was such a great analogy.
right, because it's like where everybody else is kind of welcome to just take as they please. Like when this person comes and says, "Hey, can I have?" You're like, "Yeah, you can have this amount." Like you're
Yeah.
specific because if you leave it open like you do with your other buddies, you're gonna turn around and the cooler's gonna be empty, and y'all are
Yep.
only gonna had like two, and they're gonna have had the rest. But yet then the next time they never bring anything.
Yep.
We all have that one.
And eventually that person stops getting invited. Their reputation changes to the point, and again, that is sewn into their word. It is a part of their path now, and it is a part of their path that the other members that saw it with them remember. It becomes part of their story, and it limits their abilities. If you take actions that diminish your honor, that diminish your word, then people are going to remember that, and you might not get that invite, which means you might miss out on all those things that could have happened. It's that tree, right? Like, it's why the tree is such a great analogy. When you chop off a branch of a tree, you're not just chopping off that one branch, you're chopping off the thousands of little ones that are attached to it. When you take that away, now all of those don't exist. And as you continue to do that, you continue to narrow it down until there is no path left. So you want to be doing whatever you can to make sure that you're leaving yourself open to all of those experiences, and being honorable and holding your word is a part of that.
And that's why not only being a good host, but a good guest is so important.
Mhm.
Because even if you're a good guest, if you don't have a good host, if whenever you host people, you're always this gracious person, but this one person, whenever they host, they just aren't very good.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you can't have that. You can only have, I got water. you
Yeah,
know,
it's everybody has that friend also, where, let's say, me, Redbeard, and we have two other buddies. Whenever we come to my house, it's a good time. Whenever we go to his house, it's a good time. Whenever we go to this third person, when we go to that fourth person, he's got all those weird rules, and they're different from everybody else. That being said, when that person is in the other three homes, they will participate in the fun and excitement that exists with those rules not being present, but will then put them on top of everybody when they come in there, and that affects their word as well. It's all interconnected.
That's why it's so good to not only be a good host, but be a good guest as well, you guys.
Hmm.
And that pretty much wraps up the hospitality part of this chapter. So at this point, we're going to be heading into the oaths. Um, and I kind of like the fact that we're doing the oaths tonight because just on, giving your word and keeping your word and stuff, we can talk on the aspect of we just had New Year's. So a lot
Hmm.
of people have New Year's resolutions. Now, we all know that there's thousands of people out there that my New Year's resolution this year is to eat healthier or lose weight, and a week into it, they're breaking
Yeah.
their resolution. And that's why when we're talking about oaths, just like resolutions, if you're going to make a resolution and you're actually serious about New Year's resolutions, make a resolution that is ascertainable,
Yeah.
something that you can actually achieve and know that you'll try and achieve. You know, it's not saying you can't make those as resolutions, but if that's your resolution every year and you know that, and everybody knows a week into it, it's just done and it's kind of a
Yeah.
ongoing joke, you know, we got to think about even resolutions that we make. Make it something that's ascertainable. Make it something that can really happen. Something that if I'm going to make this resolution this year, I'm going to hold myself to it. I'm going to hold myself to it by the fact that, if I start falling off the path and I'm doing this, I will do this to reciprocate and get myself back on the path, hold myself accountable, you know. And that's what we're talking about with oaths is holding yourself accountable and making sure that when you make an oath, you don't make an oath without putting a lot of thought into it, and don't
Yeah.
make an oath that you can't ascertain. Something that you just can't keep. You know that if you know that there's a 50-50 shot I'm going to be able to keep this, maybe you shouldn't make an oath on
And before we dig any deeper into oaths, oaths, like how many different ones there that can be different levels of severity. We make little oaths every day, and then we make like marriage is a term of oath. Um,
it. I hope
Certain
that's not
religious
one we make
events.
every day.
No, but you know what I mean. Like there's different levels. There's little ones. Like a resolution. It seems like a very small petty thing. Um, made silently between yourself if you say I want to do something better. But if you're going out there and telling everybody, like if you jumped onto a live New Year's Day and you said, everybody, I am not going to pick up another cigarette this year, blah 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 blah, and then tomorrow everybody sees you smoking, that's going to form an opinion of you. And when it comes to then those people thinking about a serious oath with you, they are going to have that doubt. They are going to have that seed that goes, I know that this is a bigger deal and it's more serious, but every time this person says that they're going to do something, it ends up being a joke and it ends up being a brush off. Your amount of trust in that person's serious oath is going to be greatly diminished, and that will have an effect on that oath. It will have an effect on that relationship. That's why even the little ones are important and do require thorough thought. Don't rush into an oath. Do not let yourself be bullied into one. Do not let yourself be peer pressured into one, because at that point it's not your oath, it's the group's. And you're not being true to you at that point, which is what they're about. It's your path. It's your path to walk. Your oaths need to be for you and for the people that you choose to walk that path with. Not
And it's
Go
also
ahead.
okay to like if you want to achieve something, you know, to say to people, this is a goal that I have. I don't know if I'm going to be able to achieve it or not,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to try. And even if you don't achieve that goal, when people see the effort that you're putting into achieving it because you're actually striving for it, and even if you fail
Yeah.
at that what you were trying to do, the fact is you were trying.
Yeah.
You're closer today than you were yesterday. So maybe next time you'll achieve it. Because you did make steps to try and work towards that. And even if you slid down a slope and you didn't quite make it to the top, that doesn't mean you can't start walking back up again and try again, at a later date. You may be worn out from the struggle of trying to
Exactly.
achieve it. But that doesn't mean, maybe next year, I'm say say my goal this year is I'm gonna try to exercise more often and lose some weight. And maybe I start out strong with I'm going to the gym every day. You know,
Hmm.
I'm losing a good amount of weight, and then life gets busy and I have to slow down at the gym. Or maybe I just hit a depression period in my life and I just want to eat. You know, if people see that I'm trying and I'm at a better place next year at this point with what I was trying to achieve than what I was at when I first said it, where I didn't do nothing at all. Hey, at least I got up there and I started.
Exactly.
I've only made it 3 months this year. Maybe next year I'll make it 6. Maybe next year I'll make it 9, and then the next year I'll make it a year.
Yeah. And people are going to watch those oaths. People are going to watch the kind of oaths that you make. If you're the kind of person that does make unattainable oaths, that oath is not going to mean squat to them. And this is going to lead me into saying something very unpopular with the TikTok community again. And I've said this before and I've caught flack for it. With TikTok coming together and social media and the pagan community interacting with each other, a phenomena has happened where the creation of these virtual clans exist on TikTok. 90% of them are great. I have nothing against clans in general. I do have an issue when it comes to certain clans and people not vetting the people that join, but expecting them to make a sworn oath to the leader of that clan or to that group or whatever case it be. And I would say to anybody, if you're new to TikTok and you are working with a TikTok clan and they're asking you to make an oath to somebody that you've never met in real life, to somebody that you've never worked with in real life, or that you do not know their true character in real life, do not be foolish enough to make an oath. Do not put an arm ring on for that group. There are groups that do it. There are groups that do it really well, and they're very close knit, and they're usually people that interact with each other in real life. But the thing about it is, modernly, and for some reason, I don't understand why it's happened, but when these people then do decide, okay, this clan's not for me. This is not what I thought it was, because they weren't there long enough to ascertain what it really was, and they leave, they're seen as breaking this very serious oath. And in a way they are. They did make the oath. They were foolish enough to do it. And there are repercussions to that. These groups do get angry. These groups do attack each other over this kind of stuff, and it leads to a lot of really pointless drama. Please, please, please do not put an arm ring on to anybody that you are not 1,000% certain of that person. Please, because it will lead you down a road you don't want to go down. I've seen it 1,000 times. I will log in every morning and I will have 3 or 4 messages from people leaving clans going, this wasn't what I thought it was, and now these people are attacking me. Now my videos are getting reported. Now, and it makes us all look like fucking idiots. And pardon my French, but it does. Oaths are sacred, and anybody offering you to make one that is not doing you a service. So please don't participate with it. Clans are fun. If they're hangouts, they're fun. I'm not part of a clan, but I'm a part of a recording group, the Shield Herdman, which is a content creators group. There's no leader. There's no rules. There's no secondary code of ethics to belong. It's people that come together to enrich each other's content and to get to know each other. That kind of stuff is fine. But if somebody's saying that you need to take an oath that you have to do certain things in your life, even when you're away from these people you don't know, you're making a foolish decision, and it's not going to be one that's going to work out for you. And that is not Norse Talk's opinion. I'm not speaking for Redbeard. No. That is my personal opinion, and it drives me.
No, I totally agree with you. And speaking on that, looking from the other aspect, if you do have a clan and you do claim to be the leader of the clan, or a monetary member at the top of the clan or a chieftain. You know, it's their responsibility holding that position and that clan to,
Yeah.
when you bring somebody in, say, come hang out for a while, get to know us, see what we're about. Don't expect them to, hey, I just met you, but you need to put this armband on. I want you in my clan. Will you put this armband on and then just hail down to me and all my rules?
Yeah.
No, you owe that person to know what the oath that they're actually making is, to know
Yeah.
what they're getting themselves into, what you're about, what your group is about, what you guys represent, and having them hang out with you for a while before you even give them that option.
Yeah.
That way, they're making that decision, because that would stop a lot of what's happening. Because you wouldn't be getting upset that people left because they understood what they were agreeing to, because they had been around a while and saw how things worked, instead of, well, you came in, you said you would, even though I don't know you, but now that you're leaving, I'm upset. Or you coming
Exactly.
in saying, okay, I'll do it, without knowing what you're doing, and then not understanding why they're upset that you left. I mean,
Exactly.
that goes back to the whole give and take, the responsibility on the guest and the host.
Well, and you nailed that on the head. If you are one of those people, and chances are that none of those people are present here tonight, if you are one of those people that run a clan and claim to be a chieftain and have people swear oaths to you in any way, shape, or form, I hope that you solemnly understand that you are now responsible for providing what is your job as chieftain to these people. Because if you're not, you're breaking the oath. It is not just the person that puts the arm ring on that swears to this person as a chief that's making an oath that date. It is the chieftain as well, and that's why they're present when those oaths are made. If you're a chieftain of a TikTok clan and cannot do the things that a real chieftain should do, and I've met real chieftains, I've met some real TikTok chieftains, I've met some real life ones as well. If you're not capable of doing those things for your followers, you're not a chieftain. You might be a leader of a group or a club, but you're not a chieftain. It's in name alone. And I get really upset when people mix the two, because they're not the same. I hope that makes sense.
Right, because, like, as holding that position,
Um, I hope that makes sense.
right, because, like, as holding that position, it is your responsibility to make sure that the oaths that you're having people take are oaths that can be kept, and they can't be
Mm.
necessarily kept if they're not completely informed of what it is
Yeah.
that their oath means. Um, because if when I was brand new to the community, and there's always been two aspects coming into this of the Norse community, because there's Norse talk, and then there's Norse, and then there's also the Vikings. And
Yeah.
some of the Vikings are Norse and are following the Norse ways, but a lot of it is also role playing. I love the show Viking. I want to be a Viking, this and that. And if
Yeah.
you're one of those guys, and I just came in, I was like, oh, these Viking guys are cool, and they're like, come join our clan. And I'm like, oh, cool, I get to be part of a clan. I'm not taking it seriously. They're like, yeah, you need an oath. And, they do oaths in the movie. Oh, cool, I get an armband, just like they do in the show, you know? And then you find out all of a sudden, oh, this is some serious stuff. Like, they're actually expecting something and
Yeah.
everything. And I thought this was all just fun and games. And I thought I was just kind of part of a virtual reality Sims world Vikings, you know?
Yeah.
That's why it's
No, and
important.
it happens. Like, we see
Yeah.
it nonstop. It happens. Like I say, 3 times a day, I'm going to have somebody message me saying that they're trying to get away from a clan or from okay, not too long ago on TikTok, there was a massive feud. And the source of the feud was how people's, or how clans, vulvas, or teachers or witches were being treated by other clans. And there were groups of people that believed that because this one person claimed to be a vulva, they should be respected and adhered to without question from all other clans on the app. That's not realistic. There are 1 billion people on this app. Not everybody's going to agree with you. There are, again, my guess is between 2.5 to 3 million different types of pagans just on TikTok right now. Again, just kind of spitballing with like looking at some of the really big accounts and what happens like that. Nobody's going to follow those rules. You expecting people to do so is, again, foolhardy. It's you can't live in a modern world anciently to that degree. It's not going to work. And it's not an excuse. A title is not an excuse for you, again, changing your reciprocity. It doesn't excuse you from belonging to the same code of ethics that you swear everybody else should belong to. And there was a period of time where that happened. And it led to a lot of infighting and a lot of really stupid shit happening. And there were repercussions of it that are still going on. And it's pointless. It's useless. It means, in the reality of things, it's meaningless because some of these clans don't even exist anymore. And had maybe existed for weeks when this stuff started happening, right? The people that march around on this app and claim to be a title and expect that title should mean something to everybody else, again, is a very monotheistic way of looking at something. And that's what gets me, is that you'll have somebody, well, I'm this, so I have to be treated this way and this way and this way.
Right.
Well, where in the history of heathenry does that exist, right? It doesn't exist.
Well, and that's where I caution everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're coming into a virtual world instead of the real world, and you're tackling this type of stuff of clans and families and vulvas and everything, don't be afraid to question people and not just take their word for it. Be like, if somebody claims my family line was this, and you know, I've been this my whole life, and don't be afraid to ask for the family line and do some history on the person. You know,
especially when they're using it. Yeah, if they're using it as something to describe themselves, then you as a participant have the right to ask about that. He's exactly right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just I think you made such a valid point right there.
Totally. So it's like, make sure that you like are doing your history on the person, because, you know, I could have come into TikTok 6 months ago and been like, hey, I just found this. You know, I've been Norse my whole life. My heritage is from here, because my heritage is from Norway in the early hundreds, which I found out, and I dated my heritage back. But guess what? It wasn't passed down through my family. I didn't know anything about it until about a year before I started this and got involved in it. You know, so I could have been a Joe Schmo off the street that just had this thing for liking people to follow me and gaining as much power as I can, and just claim to be something that I'm not, and you would never know the difference.
And those people exist on this app. There's no other way of saying it.
Just like they do on anything that has to do with being virtual. You know, anybody can come on here and claim to be anything they want to be. You know, they can claim to be a chief of police. They can claim to be a firefighter when the only thing that they fight is the flies on the wall. You know?
Yeah. Well, and it's not just claiming title; they can claim experiences that aren't like you. If somebody comes in and says, "Okay, I'm a Gothi. I've been practicing for 25 years," and feeds you a bunch of bullshit stories, guys, people that understand oaths about serious stuff, and chances are there are a few people in the comments that are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. It's TikTok is what happens. Anyway, so that we just covered oaths. So Redbeard, I'll get you to lead us into breaking oaths. and then we're getting pretty deep. We've been at this for a while, and people are probably getting a little bit tired and ready for question period. So we're going to hit this part, and then we'll wrap up.
There are times when an oath must be broken. Sometimes breaking an oath is for the greater good. You know, um, and that's where we were talking about a lot about making sure that like you knew what you were getting into, because you can't obviously be held responsible to keep up an oath that was impossible to keep,
Mm-hmm.
because either you don't have the capability of doing it or you didn't have the information to know what you were getting yourself into. You know, that being said, um, it also says sometimes an oath simply cannot be met no matter its parameters. So it is, oaths are very important and they're taken very seriously when they are broken. Um, that being said, if you do have an oath that you made that needs to be broken, make sure that the oath is publicly known before trying to break it. Make sure you've discussed it with other people so that if there is a way to keep it that maybe you're not seeing, possibly they can um, help you achieve it or they can point you in the right direction. But also, if it can't be achieved, you know, making sure that other people know of it and why you weren't able to achieve it, making sure that it's known within a group of people, not just one person, so that, you know, if it was an unascertainable oath, that there's no way it could be kept.
Yeah.
You are going to maybe receive some flashback against you for not keeping it. But if there's nobody else that knows about it and you don't make it public and try and discuss it with people before you break it, and it was an oath made in private and you break it, and even though the person that you broke it to knows that there's no way you could have kept it, and even though you're apologetic about it, you're sympathetic, maybe you offer to do some other things to make up for breaking the oath, but it's only been between you two and nobody knows about that oath, that person can just go slander you for breaking the oath without knowing any of the situations of why you had to break the oath.
And remember that most oaths, are a two-way thing. They're usually between groups of people. There are people that make personal oaths to the gods, to the deities, to the ancestors for certain things, but most oaths exist between groups of people, especially modernly. Um, both sides of that are required to fulfill their set promises. If you make an oath to somebody, and in the process of you trying to keep that oath, they in turn are not, your validity to that oath is now non-existent. That oath has already been broken. It is no longer valid. And it's important that when that kind of stuff happens, that you speak up about it. If you are, even if, and again, this goes into modern life. We're saying oath, but this we can say agreement or promise or anything you want. If you've made an oath or a commitment at work with coworkers on a project, and all four core workers have agreed to do different aspects of the project, and the third person isn't doing what they said that we're going to do, you backing out at that project at the end because it's not successful is not technically you breaking your oath. That oath was already broken. So when that person is not fulfilling what they said that they were going to do, it's important that you call them on it. And that's there's another stanza that talks about that very clearly, about speaking up for wrongdoing and stuff like that. It's important to use your voice, because otherwise you're going to lead yourself down a path that's going to cause you dishonor, because the project isn't going to work. The oath is going to be broken, and now you're all looking like you didn't do it. It's very important that you stand up for yourself when it comes to things like that.
Right. And it's like a prime example is like, as far as Norse talk goes, you guys, and Dringer and myself with Norse talk, we made an oath to you guys as Norse talk when we started this, that we were going to read books together and we were going to go over chapter by chapter and discuss what was in the writings of the books and what we got from the author's perspective. Another thing that we did was with Norse talk was we said that we were going to make this a open, safe environment for people to come and learn and speak with each other and give their opinions on things. And The third thing that we said is everyone is welcome. The only thing that will get you unwelcome is if you're not being respectful of other people and understanding that your opinions don't have to be the same, but you have to respect the opinions of the other people here. If when we made those, if we just said that stuff and then every time we had the show, we had people in there attacking people and being negative and everything, and we let them stay, then we would be breaking our oath to you guys.
Yeah. Or if me and Redbeard exploded at the comments anytime somebody wrote that they don't agree with us. You know, it's important that you keep in mind the things that you promise to do.
Right. And just remember, guys, there are different stages of oaths, like he was talking about before. There's also different lengths of oaths. There are some oaths that are circumstantial on the time period,
Mm-hmm.
because an oath can be started and there can be a finish to the oath, and the oath was fulfilled. A simple way to put it that she was talking about in the book is like if you go to court and you're sworn in, that's an oath when you swear in, and that oath ends the minute you're done being questioned.
Exactly. It's the same with marriage. The chapter does a really good brief description about it. If you marry somebody, you're making an oath to that person. If in your lifetime together you both change due to life circumstances, different experiences, whatever, people grow apart sometimes. People grow, they change, they evolve. If you come to the point where all of a sudden that oath no longer works with that specific person, where is the honor in both of you? And I'm not saying that you, the key to that is just fucking stepping out on your oath. Please make sure that that's not what I'm saying. It's having that conversation and talking to that other person and saying, okay, this oath that we agreed upon is no longer feasible. And chances are the other party agrees with that too if you're in that position. And then dealing with it. It's about being brave enough to talk because so many people will get into an uncomfortable situation these days and they'll just self eat. You know what I mean? They just won't deal. They'll avoid. And you're doing yourself a disservice when you do that because what you're doing is teaching yourself how to lose your own voice, which too many people do nowadays. Um, I hate making pop culture references, but my favorite saying from the Viking series was Lagertha saying, "Your most powerful weapon is your voice." And a lot of people get that twisted. They think that that is your weapon. It is the volume of your voice. It is you making a battle cry. That's not what it means. You speaking up for yourself and using your voice to help guide your path, your ethics, your standards make you powerful because that your voice is a muscle. It is a tool. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. If you can't speak up for yourself, and every time, I mean, we've all been in that. All of us have been in that one situation the first time. Whether it was the first time you got into a fight, whether it was the first time you worked a violent job or whatever, like bouncers, cops, military, COs, all that kind of stuff. You're all going to have that situation where all of a sudden you're in a really uncomfortable situation, and you got to tell somebody no, and it's not going to be received well, and you know it's not going to be received well. You still have to have the ability to do it because if you don't, things are going to get worse. You know what I mean? You're going to let go of your power. You're going to let go of your control in that job, your ability to do that job. And your coworkers and your supervisors and your managers are going to see that, and they're not going to trust you. Your voice is your most is your most powerful weapon. And I don't. And again, we're on TikTok, so I'm going to say this. There are people out there that can't speak. There are people out there that don't have the ability to verbally make noise. Their voice is still the way that they communicate. Their voice is still, they still stand up for each other and they still communicate in their way. The voice is not the actual voice. It's the ability to use your communication to stand up for yourself and what you believe in. That's what's important.
Right, because your voice is your reputation that speaks volumes. It's not how loud, it's the volumes that your reputation speaks because of your voice, because you've held your word,
Yeah.
because you've proven these things through action, the steps that you've taken, the things that you've done, the rapport that you've gained. And showing that, when I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Or, you know, reaching out when others are in need. Everything that you do builds that up, and that's the real voice, is who you have become and shown other people that you are.
Yeah.
And
And
we're going to finish up this chapter with just reading the
really,
bullet points.
really quickly, I just want to say, if you are one of those people out there that struggle to use your voice, please don't think that we're attacking you for that.
No.
It is a skill. All right. That's why it's mentioned in here. It is something that you have to work at. If you are one of those people that get so much anxiety when it comes to dealing with a hostile situation that you no longer function, people aren't going to expect you to be able to do it. It's okay. Um, what
It
everybody
can,
wants is people to try their best.
right.
You know what I mean? That's all we can do.
It can speak volumes in situations like that if you just show up. You may not
Mm-hmm.
be participating in what's going on, um, and just being a bystander and a witness.
Yeah.
It speaks reputation about yourself as well. Because even if you have that fear to speak out, that anxiety to speak out, you're more of a quiet person. You know that still builds your reputation because your voice can also hurt you, and that's why it's important to live in the now and evaluate each
Yeah.
situation before you start speaking. Because every time you do speak, that situation will come back up at some
Yeah.
point. And, you know, be prepared because when you do make mistakes and you do speak rashly, it speaks volumes. When the situation comes back up, and instead of getting defensive or trying to backtrack myself or talk myself out of what people are saying,
Yeah.
be honest. Be
Yeah.
like, you know
Even
what,
when
you're
you're
right.
wrong.
Yeah. Be like, you know what, you're right. I wasn't thinking when I said this.
Yeah.
I was in the midst of having a good time, or I spoke hastily on something. I was upset that day and it came off on somebody else because I had already had it up to here and they were just like the last hair that just knocked me down. I just lost it for a minute. You know, it's going to happen. We all are hasty at times and make mistakes. It's what we do when we make those mistakes or are confronted and find out that we make those mistakes that speaks more volume than anything else. And also, when you do make mistakes like that, it's learning from them and not continuously doing the same thing, and then going, oops, I did it again. Because, yeah, it's not a Britney Spears song. It's reality in life.
And what you just said reminded me of something that happens where I work a lot is when we hire somebody new and they fuck up, there's everybody does. When you first start, you're going to make a mistake. Everybody does, and sometimes they're minor, sometimes they're major. The biggest test of a new employee or a new member of the team is if they've made a mistake. Chances are I know about it already, and if they come and tell me, "Hey, I made a mistake. This is what I did. And this is what I learned from it." My respect and my willingness to teach, to help, to support, and to build that person goes through the roof. If I know that that person has made a mistake and I go in there and they say nothing happened, that person's integrity to me is non-existent. I don't trust them. I can't trust them because I don't know what else, when they're going to keep something from me because they were simply embarrassed about making a mistake. Your voice isn't just to stick up for you when you need to speak up. It's to own when you fuck up too. It's important. And he hit the nail on the head with it. I can't agree with him more. It's very well said.
So the last aspect of this book, you guys, is just some practical pieces of advice that is given when it comes to if you do have to break an oath. I'm just going to read these bullet points, and just remember these. This is advice. This isn't like a you have to type thing. This is advice to think on and help you in if you happen to be needing to make a decision breaking. If any kind of insurance were made at the time of the oath, be sure to fulfill those obligations. It may be financially or emotionally difficult, but remember that the impact to your reputation will be lessened by maintaining the promises you made as part of the process.
Yeah.
The second one is discuss the oath breaking with your kindred, tribe, or community. Talk about why the oath was broken and be honest about your role in it. This is an exceptionally difficult thing to do. Let them listen and weigh in on what they think and feel. They may want you to pledge something or do something to help maintain your and the group's reputation. Be fair and honest about your capabilities so they can make appropriate choices. Do what is asked of you. Next one is consider the circumstances of leaving an oath bound kindred. This may involve the return of a kindred symbol or having a symbol or other ritual to officially break the ties that bond you. Participate in these as openly and honestly as possible. Asking forgiveness is a touchy thing. Heathens don't necessarily forgive. After all, what is layered in the well of weird is already permanent. Ask instead how you can help retain your reputation. Sincere apologies are often accepted, but they must be sincere and not simply a means to an end. That one's really important.
Yep.
Remember, all past actions are permanent. You cannot change an oath once it has been made. You can, however, act in the present moment in order to add a more positive layer to your word. And finally, go forward with positive action. The better your actions are, the better your reputation will be. Try not to dwell on the situation. Pay your dues as required, and then do not break any oaths again. That is the best way to keep your reputation intact in the long run. Because people are gonna, like they say, your past is final. Like it's been done. You can't change that, but you can move forward from it by accepting what you did if it was something that you had to break, and making sure that you're not going to make that kind of decision again where you can't keep it and you have to break it, because that speaks volumes as well, because people understand that we're all flawed. Sometimes we just can't, but there's a difference between I can't but I'll do as much as I can to fulfill it,
Yeah.
and we'll come to some kind of agreement, and I'll know I didn't keep it the way I was supposed to, but I did my best to uphold it to the best of my capability. That's going to speak volumes on who you are. And the fact that when you move forward after completing that, you know, don't dwell on it. You fix that. The only thing that you can do to better yourself from there out is make sure that you keep to the rest of your oaths, and make sure that you don't make any new oaths that you know there's a chance you may not be able to keep.
And remember, guys, that the length of time that it's going to take to repair an oath that you have to break is going to depend on what kind of oath it was. If it was something minor, you might be able to regain your statue in the group with only a few positive actions. If it was a major oath and bad things happened because you didn't follow through with it, recovering from that is a completely different process, which is why it is so important to treat the little ones as important as big ones. If you have a history of breaking little oaths and repairing them, and then the first time you're stuck with an important one and you don't follow through, repairing that might not be something that you're capable of doing. Um, when you tarnish your name to a certain extent, people remember that. So remember that going forward, everybody. And
Yeah, and it definitely takes time to restore that. Like you got to make sure you're willing to prove yourself if you want to restore your reputation. And you can only prove yourself through honesty, not through scheming or trying to do things to make yourself look better. It's It's not about the appearance; it's about the reality.
That being said, I do want to make a comment about this book and just timing. This us doing this chapter as the first chapter in the new year is really cool, and I just want to put this out there for everybody that's in both of our rooms. Me and Redbeard, when we launched Norse Talk, when we picked this book, we did not aim for certain chapters to happen during certain events. Yet a few times we've been going through this book, we've hit milestones in the year and in the community and with each other where the book is really lined up. And tonight, I am really, really happy with how tonight went. I think this has been one of the best discussions. And I'm not talking about just me and Redbeard blathering to each other. I'm talking about what's been taking place in the comments. Wow, like this was cool to be a part of, and I just really want to again say thank you everybody for participating, and same with Redbeard, man. This is the show we needed going into the new year.
Right. Welcome to 2022, you guys.
Yeah.
Opening 2022 in Norse Talk. Let's be better people.
Mm-hmm. Everything you do, just remember, don't be a dick. It all boils down to that.
All right, guys, we are going to wrap up Norse Talk for the night, head into the Q&A section. Once again, we want to thank everybody that was here tonight. If you're joining us on YouTube, I forgot to say this at the beginning, but please hit that subscribe button, follow us, give us some likes and shares. You guys have all been amazing. I'm going to see you in the Q&A. But as always, stay amazing, stay creating, and always be awesome. It's not a me thing, not a him thing. It's a we thing, and we can't do it without each and every one of you. Welcome to 2022.